direct path. You talked earlier about proper meditation. I remember you making that
Mhm.
distinction, but we didn't really dive into what that meant. I'm assuming proper meditation refers
Yeah,
to
well,
a more direct path.
yeah, maybe that's proper isn't the best word. That already implies there's right and wrong. But I can just say from my experience,
Yeah.
having meditated for years, doing for me, this is just me, mantra meditation, and not understanding the capacity to just be present without having an idea this is going to take me to such and such, or this is going to. So it became a chore. Okay, I'm going to sit and do my meditation, and I liked it. I liked the quietness and withdrawal from the world, but still, I was in my head a lot. I would get headaches. I was so much in my mind, in my head, that I was never taught that how to be free of that um, striving for something that was going to be better than where I was. And so it didn't work for me. So I feel like a lot of people, what they call meditation, some people will sit down and listen to a guided imagery. You're feeling, you're before an ocean and you're on the beach and they'll call that meditation, for example. Or they'll think that they have to concentrate or, that there's some degree of efforting putting into the experience that I feel is just sitting down and doing what we do in the world all the time and calling it meditation. And then there's another thing that comes to me, the idea of in mindfulness. Um, I think some people think of it as observing what's going on. And so there's already a duality. There's me observing my breath or observing who's observing. So so I think I don't think that's inherent in mindfulness. I think mindfulness can be uh, this kind of sensing into what I'm talking about, sensing into the moment. But I think sometimes, maybe it's not, maybe all the time, the language that's used is never quite captures something that's beyond language. And
Hmm.
so it becomes a bit of a distortion, and we can get caught up in that, how the language is presented and not understand this capacity to be in the moment. And I think there are other mindfulness teachings that transcend that. I'm not trying to say one mindfulness is less better or whatever, but I think within each approach, there's it can be misunderstood and often is.
Mm. I kind of want to put myself out there for a second, and because I've this is this is an idea that may be out there, but as far as I know, I came to this on my own. I don't think it's that radically unique because I think it there's a way in which I notice it fits for me. And that is so as I've taught mindfulness to students, the the big metaphor that I've used is deep listening. And I've discovered I think mindfulness more than anything is one of the things I've struggled with teaching the most for the reason that you're indicating, which is that the language in a way betrays what's actually happening. And so, but we have to teach through language. That's
Yeah,
what we do. So, and one of the reasons that I've come to this deep listening metaphor as a way to teach is that it allows a lot of the more traditional teaching components to come online, like notice what it's like to be you right now.
mm,
What's it like?
mm,
what's it like to have a left hand right now? Just things like that of just becoming mindful of various objects of awareness and letting them go and so on.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I like the metaphor is like, yeah, there's a way in which listening is analogous to each of these techniques, if you want to call them that. But also, I think when we're in a state of very deep listening, there is a separation, or that separation that is more typically between subject and object does dissolve. And I like it as a metaphor for that invitation to relax into it to where it can dissolve, like you would when you're deeply listening to
Yeah.
someone or something.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. So the first meditation I was ever taught from Chogyam Trungpa was about listening, but it took me 50 years to understand what he was saying. Maybe that's the long path to get to, for me, this winding path to get back home again. Um, and yeah, so that sounds great what you're saying, and also in the mindfulness tradition, early on I came across a book on what they call bare attention, which is a lot of what we're talking about, but they use that term, just bare attention, nothing else, just attention. Uh, and then another aspect of this for me is when one starts to listen, the first tendency is to focus on what you're listening, what you're hearing, on the object of listening, whether it starts out as sounds or whether it's something that comes up in the kind of listening you're talking about. And as we move deeper, it feels, my experience is that um, we move away from what's being heard or what's being listened to listening itself. And so the what, the object, even the subtle object or even the internal object begins to be not what's attended to. And then there's a real openness, a non uh, free of content that begins to happen. Is that making sense?
It does to me. It does to me.